I was speaking at a school, and after I got done, I visited some small classrooms. Well, I walked into one classroom, hung out with the kids for a while, and one of the kids challenged me to an arm wrestling match. Now, this kid was in first grade, but he was so confident he was going to beat me in arm wrestling, so I said, okay, let's do this. Rolled up my sleeves, we got down, and I got ready to arm wrestle him. And you know what? We went after. And after a couple minutes, actually less than a minute, guess what happened? I won. Now, you would expect me to win. He was in first grade. Now, if he'd have beat me, he must have been really, really strong. But I won. But he challenged me, but I still won. Well, our story today, somebody got challenged. It wasn't just one person. It was a whole army that got challenged by one guy. This one guy was named Goliath. And Goliath was a Philistine. And he was challenging not one man to fight, he was challenging the whole army. He said to the army, hey, pick one guy to come fight me. All of you, come give me one man to fight. And they wouldn't send anyone. Everyone was scared to fight. He was challenging all of them. He wanted to pick one to fight him, and no one would fight him. He even said this, if you guys win, we will be your servants. But if I win, you guys will be our servants. But nobody would fight him. They were all afraid. As a matter of fact, they were scared. They were more than afraid. They were scared. Can you say scared? Scared. Now, this story is found in 1 Samuel 17. I'm going to read some of the passages with you. You can see that it's not just me making the story up. It's right here in the Bible. As a matter of fact, if you turn to 1 Samuel chapter 17, look at verse 25. The king of Israel, name was Saul at the time, and he was going to give an award for anyone who would fight this Goliath dude. Listen to what he said in verse 25. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, and he will give him his daughter and make his father's household free in Israel. Means he didn't have to pay taxes. There was a great reward for anybody who fought this big giant named Goliath. But nobody wanted to fight him. Well, maybe there was one. See, David was this little guy. He wasn't even in the army yet. He was back at home tending to his father's sheep when his father said to him, hey, David, go check on your brothers, take them some food, take them some flour, take them some stuff, and check on your brothers. So David went. And when he got there, he got greeted by his brothers, but then he heard something. He heard somebody yelling. You know what he heard? He heard Goliath. Because every day Goliath would come out and start yelling at the Israel army to come fight him. This is what he said. What he said is found in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Look at verse 8. He says this. Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourself and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servant and serve us. I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that he may fight together. When David heard this, David got upset. Like, who is he to defy the armies of God? See, David wasn't so excited about his own name. He was excited about God's name. And he knew that this was the army of God, and they shouldn't be afraid of anyone, especially this Philistine. So David was all upset, and he was talking to people about it. Well, the word got back to King Saul that this young man was willing to go fight Goliath. Was he really going to fight Goliath? Well, they took David before the king, and he told the king, I'll fight this Goliath. But listen to what Saul said to David. In 1 Samuel chapter 32, David says this, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him. You are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep the sheep with his father. And when they came, a lion or a bear, and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be just like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And David said, The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Goliath said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. See, King Saul thought David was too young to fight. He looked down on him because he was young. But David said, look, God is faithful. God helped me when I had to fight a lion. I had to fight a bear to protect the sheep. God protected me, and he will protect me against this guy too. David's faith was in God. He could trust God because God is faithful. You know what? You can trust God because God is faithful. That word faithful means he can be trusted. He does what he says he's going to do. He's faithful. Our God is faithful. And we can look through the Bible and see all kinds of things God did for other people. And God is the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. He will do the same for us. God will protect us from our enemies. We can take all our big problems and the small ones to God because we can trust God because God is faithful. There's a verse in Psalm 56:11 that says this, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? Psalm 56:11. Now I made a memory verse about that. I'll put a link in the description somewhere. You can see that verse. But it's so true. In God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? And David had to feel the same way. What could this Philistine do to me? Because I trust in God. So David was ready to go fight Goliath. But Saul said, wait a minute. Why don't you use my armor? I don't know if it was special armor or Saul just figured, hey, take the king's armor to go fight this. So he tried it on. He tried it on and it just didn't fit. It was too big. It was awkward. He couldn't use it. It's kind of like if my son tried to wear my clothes to go to school. That would be interesting. So David did not use it. Instead, listen to what David did. 1 Samuel 17, verse 40. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch, his sling in his hand, and he approached Goliath. Now, when Goliath saw David coming after him, he started doing something called smack talking. I call it smack talking. When he started talking about, man, you going down. Sometime when I play sports with kids, they talk about, oh, Mr. Brown, I'm going to beat you so bad. Mr. Brown, I'm going to embarrass you. All that kind of stuff. That's called smack talk, right? Well, David and Goliath started doing some smack talking. Look at what happened. Goliath looked at David and said, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And Goliath cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said. I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. David said to Goliath, you come against me with sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Whoa! Goliath's like, man, you got little sticks with you? David's like, no. You got a javelin, you got all that stuff, but I got God, because God is bigger than your javelin, than your sword. He's bigger than you. And I think we need to understand that God is big. God is great. It's an old song I used to sing with the kids. My God is so great, so strong and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. God is greater than our problems. God is the creator of the universe. He's all powerful. He's in control of all things, and we can trust God. As you think about the story, David is not trusting his own self. David wasn't stronger than Goliath. He wasn't bigger than Goliath. But he understood God was bigger than Goliath and God could be trusted. You can remember that too. You can say it with me. I can trust God because God is faithful. Say it with me. I can trust God because God is faithful. So David went after Goliath and look at what happened next. Verse 46. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands and I will strike you down and cut off your head. What? David said he's going to cut off his head. Let's see what happens. Verse 48. And Goliath moved closer to attack him. David ran quickly to the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag, he took out a stone. He slung it and struck Goliath on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over Goliath with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down Goliath and killed him. David ran and stood over him and took out Goliath's sword and drew it from his sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. What? He did it. He beat Goliath. And you know the agreement was, after whoever won, the other army would give up. The Philistines, when they saw Goliath was dead, they just ran, and the Israel army ran after them. But David had won the battle. Actually, who won the battle? God won the battle. This story is usually said David and Goliath, but it's really God versus Goliath. God used David to win the battle. And even David would say, it's not about him, it's about the Lord. Just like God protected him from the lion and the bear, God did the same thing with Goliath. Listen, when you face problems in life, I'm not gonna tell you all your problems will be solved, but you can trust God because God is faithful. The lesson we can learn is this: I can trust God because God is faithful. You wanna say it with me? I can trust God because God is faithful. You might not ever be challenged to arm wrestle anyone or fight a giant, but you can be sure that you can trust God because God is faithful. Say it with me again. I can trust God. I can trust God because God is faithful.